It's interesting how the first review I do this year is of a children's book turned into a TV movie, just like my first ever review on this channel for Stella Luna. Maybe I should turn this into a thing. I don't know. We'll see. Also, let's consider this a very late December review. Now, I did not make a review in December because I was understandably mad at YouTube for randomly terminating my channel, but that's another story completely, and I've already made a video on that. Christmas! It's fun, it's cold, you end up with nice gifts, and a belly full of home-cooked food. And if not, there's probably a Chinese place open. I could have gone with the more obvious stop-motion classic like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but I wanted to go with something a little different, like the story of a Jack Russell Terrier who wants to save Christmas. I know, it's one of those saving Christmas stories, but let's see what makes this movie stand out. Does it say anything different about the holidays from other stories? And ultimately, as mentioned before, we follow the story of a dog named Olive, who is a fan of almost every single holiday you can think of in Western culture, especially Christmas.
I love Valentine's Day and the 4th of July. I'm a little bit sad when Halloween has gone by.
But when news breaks out that Santa is going to cancel Christmas due to an injured reindeer, her flea friend Fido misinterprets the news as a call to action for the dog to save Christmas.
No, he said Olive, the other reindeer. I heard him. Santa needs you to be the replacement reindeer.
That's crazy.
Now, I think what's interesting about this little film is that the scenery, characters, etc. are presented as on a two-dimensional plane for the most part, even though it's all 3D models and all that. Think Mr. Game & Watch from Super Smash Bros. Almost everything is either side view or 3/4 portrait, even when it looks like a frontal shot as well. While that's noticeable, I don't mind it because I can just imagine the hassle of trying to create a frontal view of the characters that also doesn't break from the already established art style of the book it's basing itself on. Compared to the other 1999 CGI property I reviewed, Gregory Horror Show, the animation is much smoother and much bouncier to its benefit. It suits the more happy-go-lucky tone rather than the slow and creepy tone of Gregory. It's always interesting to go back and see how 3D animation was handled pre-2000s, at least to me, you know. You may recognize quite a bit of the talent that are featured in this film as well, like Drew Barrymore, who is, Drew Barrymore. You know who she is. Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson. The penguin is voiced by the bald guy from Matrix. The one in the poster right there. Yeah, there. The guy who plays Santa in this little TV movie is Carl, the old guy from Up. The bus driver is Tim Meadows. He's a very stellar SNL actor. Matt Groening, yes, it is pronounced Groening, I checked, who is the creator of such shows as The Simpsons and Futurama. Speaking of which, as you might have guessed, you might get a similar vibe from those shows in all of the other reindeer, but in a kid-friendly way, of course. This comes about as the adult references and jokes.
Tonight on Fox, the world's wildest mistletoe accidents.
Are you okay, Martini?
Shaken, but not stirred.
You have sympathetic characters that aren't all goody-good or so evil they would kick a puppy. Like you have the counterfeit penguin that puts aside his greed and helps our main dog towards her goal. And then there is our main villain, a frustrated mailman, who is actually glad that Christmas is canceled because that means a lighter workload for him. You could probably empathize or sympathize with that if you worked retail, fast food, I guess you could just call it more clever writing since there's a bit more nuance to their characters. The music is also pretty good, with songs sprinkled in here and there with purpose. By that I mean you don't have songs just thrown right in to have a pretty set of visuals along with some catchy quote-unquote tunes thrown in just to entertain a brain-dead audience. There's thought put into here. and while I wouldn't call these songs masterpieces, they do fit the personalities of the characters singing it. Despite not being the best singer of the cast, Olive's musical parts are dorky and cute, which Drew Barrymore really brings out in this role. Usually she's the more confident main girl character type. I mean, she's been in Ever After and Scream and Charlie's Angels. But she was also the little girl in E.T., so I don't know. Going back to the music, it's kind of odd that they reuse the opening number at the end as sort of an overture. Like they don't really change it or reprise it at all. It's just, hey, this sounded good in the beginning, let's slap it at the end again. It works though. If we could look back at the art style, some characters look a bit more cartoony than others, sometimes distractingly so, but that is the joke. This isn't like Simpsons or Futurama where you have basic character models that are all around the same height and body structure that you could just modify later. In Olive, the other reindeer, the designs between characters are much more varied than in other animated programs, but then again, they're probably just basing that off of the book, so I can't give too much credit to the artists and animators on this project. On to spoiler territory. Skip ahead to this point in the video to avoid spoilers, and hang on tight if you don't care. That flea character, Fido, kind of an asshole. Story-wise, his role is important in developing that much-needed character conflict and call to action for Olive, but I can't say he's been given any negative consequences for basically lying his butt off and causing a little bit of unneeded grief. I mean, outside of the thought of, wow, I really hope I didn't screw this up by making her run away, it could have been stronger if both characters had realized their flaws, and then work together to save Christmas along with the penguin. It would make Fido a much better character too. But let's look at another character, the mailman. I almost feel bad for him, considering where he ends up, but then again, he did try to destroy Christmas. And if you've seen a Christmas movie, it's the ultimate sin. The bad guy in a Christmas movie, no matter his motivations, must inevitably suffer the worst fate because Christmas is the ultimate good. If you rob that from the world, you are literally Hitler incarnate. That's just how some of these holiday stories work. Redemption be damned. Sometimes there is redemption, like in A Christmas Carol or The Grinch. That's only when they have the opportunity to learn the quote-unquote true meaning of Christmas. But stories like All of the Other Reindeer don't have that, and I don't know if I can agree with that, unless, that's part of the joke. I'm just gonna say it's part of the joke. In this case, I just want to see how people actually react to the penguin mailman. Spoilers over. Overall, I don't know if this says anything different about Christmas that other specials don't already say, but the story told is done in such a way that it's really entertaining. And Olive in general is really the kind of character portrayed and written that you can't help but root for her. And yeah, I really like it. It's a nice little film. But now comes the more important question. How furry is it? Let's comb through this movie using my chance system, a handy rubric I use to break down furry aspects in media, those being cast, harmony, anthropocentrism, narrative commonality, and expression. Let's start with cast, or how many narratively important characters that are furry. This film has an even split of human and anthro characters, but more humans seem to help Olive on her journey than the furry characters. Mainly, it seems like the animal/furry characters are still in positions that you would expect an animal to be in, i.e. a pet or an exhibit in the zoo, so they're just minorities in a human-based environment. Outside of the zoo, most of the furries are Santa's reindeer too, including the ones that don't pull the sleigh. But you still have Olive, Fido, the penguin, and a couple of humans. I guess that technically counts as half anthropomorphic, so I'll give this a 2 out of 4. Next is harmony, or how natural the furries are to the setting. Now, these are mostly domestic or known animal species, and again, humans and animals have no qualms interacting with each other. They both walk on 2 legs or 4, hang out at bars, do musical numbers with each other, all that good stuff. It makes me wonder about the dynamic of the human-animal relationship in this little world, but if the film isn't going to go into too much depth about it, then I won't. I'm not knocking the film for it either, even if it could add to the film's furry quality. From what I can understand, the furries are treated like regular animals in terms of power dynamic for the most part. Like when the reindeer, elves, and other North Pole workers all hang out at a bar, they're pretty much at an even level. More so than Tim and Olive, who still have the master-pet relationship. I guess it's a case-by-case basis. Anyway, the furry presence is unremarkable, so I'll give this 4 out of 4. Moving on to anthropocentrism, or how close these anthros are to being human. The animals stand on 2 legs more than they stand on all 4s, but they still retain their animalness while basically acting human. Mainly, there are details and jokes to remind you that they are the animals that they are, outside of their physical appearance, that is. Olive still orders dog food at a rest stop restaurant, to no surprise from the human server, but that's also more or less the joke.
Maybe I should have tried the reindeer chow.
They're animals, therefore their diet is based around their respective species, even when they talk and act like human. More human than animal, so closer to a 3 out of 4. And next is narrative, or how important these furries' animal nature is. Our main conflict is a cross between saving Christmas and Olive trying to realize her place in the world, in terms of what species she is, whether it's dog or reindeer. Clearly it's dog, but in the beginning she's berated for not acting like a typical dog. Kind of weird how it's all the negative stereotypes.
Did you bury any bones today?
No, Tim.
Chase any cars or cats?
Afraid not.
Did you even make a token attempt to tear up any flower beds?
Uh-uh.
And I haven't heard any senseless barking at all.
Woof?
It's implied that this has been going on since she was a puppy, so a part of her character is species confusion. It's still not the main conflict in terms of story, but it is a part of her character, and this species confusion is what really drives her towards her goal. This is more of a saving Christmas kind of a movie. Not the Kirk Cameron saving Christmas kind, more like Ernest Saves Christmas. And with Christmas being the main conflict, this gets a 3 out of 4 in terms of narrative. Then we have commonality, or how prevalent anthros are outside of the main cast. I don't think there is much in terms of anthro characters outside of the zoo, animals, and the North Pole workers. There's a family of mice in the beginning. Mice, rats, rodents. But that's about it. It makes sense in the context of the film, as this is still a human-dominant society, but if a dog and a penguin can easily buy a bus ticket, no questions asked, then where are all the other animals taking the bus? As I said before though, that's the joke. I wish there would have been more interaction with furry critters aside from the main 2, but I'll take what I can get and call this a 2 out of 4. Finally, we have expression, or how furry they actually look. There is noticeable creative liberty with these character designs, some more than others, and that goes for both the human and furry characters. I think it's a nice choice for Olive to have the same head shape as the reindeer characters. It's a good little detail that further adds to the species confusion, but that's probably a decision that came from the book more than the filmmakers. But overall, they look and act very humanoid. There are height differences between the animals and humans, and they display animal-like characteristics. I would still give this a 2 out of 4. After a tally of each score, we have a total of 16 out of 24. Overall, this is a cute little film with plenty of well-placed references and jokes for all the parents watching it with their kids, while still being a family-friendly adventure. I adore Olive's never-dying spirit the most because I enjoy when people are passionate about things in general.
I'm not quite following you, Olive. You say you're a reindeer, and I asked you to come?
Right. I heard you on the radio.
We always get the crazies on Christmas Eve. Never fails.
Well, can you fly, Olive?
Can you afford not to find out?
Speaking of passionate, go ahead and comment your favorite Christmas movie or story. Bonus points if they're a little bit furry. But this has been Gregor, non-flying reindeer, with How Furry Is It? Click on the like button if you enjoy what you saw, and subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to see more anthro analysis and antler antics. Now before I go, just want to tell you guys I have a Patreon now. It's just another way for you guys to support this channel. And if you just want to make a small one-time donation, I'll be linking a Ko-fi account as well. The link to that will be in my Patreon and the description for this video. But otherwise, have a good day, and yeah, stay awesome.